So let's talk about handlebars. I have my gravel bike on the right here and my road bike on the left. And these handlebars are a little bit different. And the difference is very important when I'm packing them in my bike box, and I'm going to explain that. So, this is my gravel bike. The handlebar cables, this is really what's different. The cables are quite long on this bike. So I can take these handlebars off and I can move them to the side and sort of minimize the space they're taking up. On my road bike, you can see the cables are very, very short and narrow and tucked in. So there's almost no extra cabling. So I really cannot take off these handlebars and move them to the side. Why do your handlebars matter? Because your bike may or may not fit in your box depending on your handlebars. I had a bike box that I used for many years and it worked great. Then I got a new bike, and the day before my trip, I went to put my bike in the box. Lo and behold, the handlebars couldn't move, so I couldn't get the bike in there. So I scrambled and called a friend night before the trip. Luckily, he had a box that fit my bike. But the lesson is, do not wait until the day before you travel to see if your bike will fit in your box. Try it a couple weeks before you travel, just in case it doesn't fit. Then you give yourself time to figure out a solution. So I ended up having to get a new bike box to fit my new bike, but I absolutely love this bike box, so I'm really glad that I got it. You can see there's an area right here that juts out, and that is for the handlebars. So I actually do not have to remove the handlebars in this case. I also do not have to take out the seat post. The only thing I have to remove are the pedals, and it's super, super easy. If you're curious what this one is, it's the Bike Box Allen Triathlon Aero Easy Fit. If you do end up having to remove your handlebars, there are two ways I've done it in the past. The first way is I've removed the faceplate on the stem and just taken the handlebars off there. The second way is I've removed it from here and I've taken the handlebars off with the entire stem. So of those two options, I do recommend you take the handlebars off and leave the stem on, because the stem is securing that fork to the frame. And if you take that stem off, the fork can move around a little bit. And though that's not a horrible thing, you can deal with that. It's just easier to leave it on and not have to think about that happening. If you end up taking your handlebars off and leaving the stem on the bike, I recommend you mark the position of the handlebars before you take it off. So get a little piece of electrical tape and put it right next to the stem and right at that seam. And that will tell you when you put your bars back on where exactly you need to position them to keep your position the same. When you put your handlebars or stem back on, the torque is very important. You can actually see this gives you directions. It says tighten top first with no gap, 5 Newton meters. So that means on this faceplate, I'm tightening these top two, no gap, and then I tighten the bottom two up to 5 Newton meters. So again, that torque wrench, this one only goes to 4, but you can get one that goes to 5, is very important. This is my gravel bike, and the way I'm attaching this faceplate is a little different from what I did with my road bike. Notice the gap right here. Your bike is probably like this. Most bikes, you actually need to attach this faceplate evenly at the top and the bottom. So it's not like my road bike where you tighten this all the way down to get rid of the gap and then you tighten the bottom. This is different, and your bike is probably like this one. So notice the gap here, and if you go underneath, there's also a gap, and that gap is about even, and that's what you want on your bike. Most likely, you want these gaps to be even. So these 4 front screws, you're going to tighten, kind of going to tighten this one,
then this one, then this one, then this one, and sort of keep going back and forth so you're tightening them all about the same amount and you're not over tightening one at any one time. If you took the entire stem off, the way you put it on is very important. First, remember where your spacers were and put them on exactly the same way. Second, you have a screw up here and you have usually two down here. So this one is for the tension on that fork. So this is the one you want to tighten first. Do not crank down on it. This one's probably only going to go to like 1 or 2 Newton meters. You basically want to tighten it tight enough that your fork is moving freely, but it's not wiggling inside of here, because that will damage your bearings. So when you put the stem back on, tighten this first, just enough to get the perfect tension for your fork, and then tighten these two and go back and forth and tighten them evenly to the torque that is specified, usually 4 or 5. These two kind of lock the whole system down. So if you tighten these and then decide, oh, but my fork is a little tight, I want to loosen it, and you try to loosen this one, it won't do anything because it's locked. So if you want to loosen or tighten this one, the tension on the fork, first you have to loosen these, then loosen or tighten this, then sort of lock the whole system down with these two.